Sunday, July 13th, 2025. Thank you guys for stopping by. And today's topic is shame. In Western culture, we've taken that word and put it to sleep, man, to where nobody has any shame, and I think we put too much emphasis on sex in terms of pointing at women and being promiscuous, and they should be ashamed that they're out here having so much sex. But I want to bring it back to where instead of focusing on the obvious, I'd like to focus on what a lot of people dare not really talk about, and that's just a general sense of shame. The general sense of shame that I'm talking about is from one generation to the next. And it seems like I'm 60 years old. It seems like my generation wants to throw the previous generation under the bus for what the previous generation failed to do. And I would just have to say that this video that I'm making right now came into existence as a result of my father recently dying. He died earlier this year, and 3 months before he died, I was able to kind of make peace with my father. He was at the hospital having problems breathing because he had spent many years as a young man smoking cigarettes. I mean, I think before he was 13, he was smoking cigarettes on a regular basis. But the thing that motivated me to visit my dad 3 months before he died was because I held a grudge, because he had pretty much lost the family fortune. Everything that he and my mother had built financially, he lost. And it was really ironic that a few months before my mother died when I was 15 years old. A few months before she died, she had actually predicted that in less than 5 years after her death, my father would, quote unquote, fuck off the fortune. she said this. They were returning from a chemotherapy session, and I happened to be in the car with my mother, and my mother was feeling really awful because of the side effects of the chemo. And my aunt, who lived in St. Louis, she came down, and she had been staying with us for almost a month at this particular time. And she was in the back seat, I was in the front seat, my dad's driving, and my mother's just talking crap about my dad, just, Junior's gonna ruin everything, and that's what she called my father, Junior. Because my father was a junior, His father was Steve Sr., my father was Steve Jr. Junior's gonna ruin everything, and my aunt is trying to comfort my mother. Yeah, don't say that about your husband. Oh, I know, Junior, he's gonna screw everything up. And so my mother died, and in less than 5 years, that was her prediction. I said, I give it 5 years. It'll be gone in 5 years. And so in less than 5 years, my father, I think he had like 2 or 3 months to go to beat the prediction, and he just couldn't hang in there, and he lost it. And I was really upset. I mean, I was upset, and the reason why, 5 years at the funeral, I'm giving my father this pep talk, and the pep talk came out of me watching this movie about Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes, his father died while he was an adult man, and Howard Hughes has spent a lot of his years just kind of being a philanderer. He just going to parties, getting access to all the beautiful women, and everybody wants to be with Howard Hughes and all of this. And so the movie opens with Howard Hughes walking on the tarmac at an airport with the family attorney. And the family attorney basically says, when are you going to grow up? Life for a man should be filled with challenges. You know, you've conquered women, you've conquered spending money, but you have yet to really build something with your own two hands. Everything, this is your father's fortune. It's not much, but it'll be gone. It'll be gone unless you get your head out of your backside and get with the program. And so the movie actually shows how Howard Hughes created this multi-billion-dollar empire, and he did it, through moving money and making deals. And he built the Spruce Goose, which was a doomboggle. It was a failure, but it flew. He said it was going to fly, and it did. But it was the long and the short of it was I gave my father a similar pep talk that the attorney gave Howard, and my father paid no attention to what I said. He just went into this shell of misery, and he never wanted to come out. But he eventually remarried, had 2 sons, my half brothers, and he spent more time hanging out with them than he did hanging out with me or my siblings that he had with my mother. And so, bringing it full circle to this issue of shame, I had to go visit my dad 3 months before he died, because as much as my sisters and my other siblings, my brother, would have anyone believe that my father he fell short of being a good father, I basically started asking myself. I asked myself the question, well, if my dad was an awful dad, how does my father stand up to me being a good father, a good husband, and a good, just a good man, masculine human being? And honestly, I could not hold a candle to my father. I was not worthy to tie his shoes as an old man, And it was at a point where I had to visit my father. Thank God I came to this realization 3 months before he died. And I literally started recounting some of the things that he did that most people don't really appreciate that good men did back in the day, because the men today don't even have a standard of what goodness is. Like, a good man will go to work and come home, and he will, when payday comes, take that money. He'll pay the rent. He'll share the money to buy groceries to feed the kids, and he'll even take some of that money to buy the kids toys, something that has really no utility value for him as a man, but he'll do that. He'll even go shopping before Christmas secretly with the wife, the mother, to get toys for the children to celebrate Christmas. My father did all of those things. He supported me when I played sports. When I ran track, he came to every track event that they had. Every football game that I played football in, he came and supported. He was the coach of one of my baseball teams that I played at the Parks and Rec department in the neighborhood that I grew up in. I was born and raised in Compton, too, in case you guys are curious. I was born in Doctors Hospital, downtown Los Angeles, and I was raised in Compton. So I'm just recounting all of these wonderful things my father did. He was able to put myself, my brother, and my 2 sisters through private school from 1st grade through 12th. He paid for me to go to university. When I left high school, I went straight from high school to UCLA. I dropped out of UCLA. I was a math major when I was there. I wasn't that great of a student, and that's a whole nother story for another day. But I ended up leaving that to join the fire department. And shortly after joining the fire department, I met the woman that would become the mother of my children and ultimately my wife. And we were married twice, and we were divorced twice. So So it was at a point where I actually started doing this comparison to say, okay, my father, he managed to find a woman that would have his children and be faithful to him and be supportive enough to build with him to where he could go to work, come home, and do all of the things that I saw him do with me. He didn't have time to have a side piece. He didn't have time to have an affair. The only thing he had time to do was what a father does with a wife and children. Go to work, provide, and we did a lot of fun things together. That was one thing I made a point to try to model after my father. But I just wasn't able to pick a woman that would give me that freedom to do those things. But I did them to the best of my ability nonetheless. But I wasn't able to give my kids what my father gave to me. I wasn't able to give my kids what my mother gave to me. You know, so here it was. I'm basically just shrugging my shoulders, but I got hit with an overwhelming sense of shame because it was within my ability and power to make happen. But I didn't have the discipline. I didn't have the foresight. I didn't have the thoughtfulness to control what I could control. And I'm just listening to social media. I'm listening to all of these voices instead of paying attention to the voices of my parents. Because my mother told me what I needed to do. My father showed me what I needed to do. But I failed to do all of those things. And for that, I have great shame. I have great guilt. But I'm not so ashamed and I'm not so guilt-ridden that I can't humbly put these mistakes on display for the next generation to see. My generation should be awfully ashamed that we want to blame our parents for the miserable circumstances that we see existing in our world. We have had more of a hand in creating these screwed up family situations than we care to give credit to ourselves. It's our fault that we're in broken marriages. It's our fault that these kids don't know what a man is and what a woman is. It's our fault when Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner, when Bruce Jenner announced that he's now a woman, Vanity Fair put him as Woman of the Year. And I'm just like scratching my head like, what the hell is going on? My mother, she's long since dead when this all happened. But I was just waiting for my sisters to become disgusted and, you know, want to protest this. But everybody, it was just a regular day in the life of the United States that, you know, we're making men dressed like women Woman of the Year. So what does it mean to be a woman? You know, if you guys don't have a problem with it, then why should I say anything to the contrary? You know, I'm basically just, you know, and I'm going to tell a story on another video that will give you the context of why I'm speaking against this. And I'm not speaking against people being free to make their choices. I'm basically saying, look at the consequences of what comes out of all of these things. And if you're cool with what comes out of it, then no problem. Have at it and enjoy yourself. But if you see that there's something wrong and you want to try to place blame, blame yourself for not taking action. Because there should be some things in life that should bring shame, that should make you say, no, I'm going to have more discipline and self-control. I'm not going to give in to this desire, because to give in to this desire is going to really make me uncomfortable. It's going to make me uncomfortable to the degree that I'm not going to really be proud of tomorrow, because so many people are going to point to yesterday, and the only thing that's going to really make yesterday not sting so bad is that you've learned your lesson. But I'm going to make another video, a part 2 to this video, where I'm going to elaborate some of the things that we should really be ashamed of. We should be really ashamed of blaming the previous generation for our current miseries when we're not doing anything to take action to correct, to get back to where we should have been because of the standard that the previous generation gave us. I couldn't put my children through private school for not even 1 year at the very same school that my parents sent me because the tuition was just so expensive. But here it was, my mother and father had 4 kids, and they were able to make all 4 of us private school, from elementary school through high school, private school students. And I'm so grateful because it's enabled me to know how to speak, to know the difference between an infinity and where you put it in a sentence. I know all of these things. And it's really enabled me to speak clearly without having to use so many words. That's going to be another video that I got slated for the future. But we're going to do a part 2 of this shame issue. And women, don't feel ashamed for wanting to be promiscuous. Don't feel ashamed for that. But I got a video for that one later on down the road too. But we should feel ashamed because we cannot provide, as the current generation, we cannot provide those things that the previous generation provided. And if you want to sit here and say, well, it's the economy, it's all of this, it's all of that. Well, at a certain age, when you become aware of these things, you start figuring out what you need to do to adapt. Because I've got a lot of family, a lot of friends in business where these people came as immigrants, and many of them didn't even speak not one word of English. But having met them now in their latter years, they're much older than me, they all have thriving businesses, their kids are graduating, and they're getting into professions where they're making a lot of money. So, are you telling me that despite all of these changes, that you couldn't be on the other side of the statistic where it's not a problem for you that the wages for the average person have become inhospitable to owning a home? That you'll need your parents to help you buy a home. Well, did you position yourself to be able to do that for your children? Or are you just letting them stay in your home because they're helping out in terms of covering the mortgage for you and making it more convenient for you to own that home? Something to think about. You know, and it's something for the children to think about. Are you living with your parents as a result of them being generous to you? Or do they really need you to be there, or somebody to help cover the mortgage, to help make their lives more comfortable? Because I guarantee you, for many of you guys, when your parents drop dead, if there's no life insurance there, you guys are going to be stuck with trying to figure out how you're going to keep the house. And most people are going to end up selling at a loss, or they might just let the bank take the house right back. So we'll deal with a part 2. Talk to you guys soon.